Today I want to show you something about how to lay out a piece of artwork using a piece of enlarged Xerox copy with graphite. And this is a technique that's been used by hundreds and hundreds of artists on hundreds of pieces. And but I've discovered one thing that I hadn't done before, and I want to share that with you. But the piece I want to demonstrate this with is a colored pencil piece I just finished for the Colored Pencil Society Explore This show, which is going to be judged in January. So this is the final output that I did from a photograph I took at Stone Mountain Park with my grandkids and kids in tow. But I want to show you how I got to that point with initial layouts and some of the things I did in Photoshop and some other techniques that I used which I hadn't used before. You may be familiar with graphite and how you can use graphite to transfer an image, but I had not used the product that I'm going to show you right now. The layout here was initially done using a Xerox copy that I made. I've got a large format HP printer. It's an HP 7610. It'll do up to 13 by 19, I believe, is the size of the paper that'll go in it. And it's got a really nice large scanner. I'd recommend it if you do any pieces that are bigger than 8 by 10 or 8.5 by 11. The scanner, this piece right here is a 10.5 by 13.5, which makes it a good size for a 11 by 14 print to go under 11 by 14 frame. But the thing that's interesting about this particular layout tool that I printed, this was not printed on the surface that I drew on, which if it was, would violate a number of rules that a lot of these folks like Colored Pencil Society have about how you are not supposed to print directly onto the drawing surface. So anyway, this particular print is of a black and white line drawing that I created in Photoshop. And if you'll see on the back of the paper, this is what's different. I usually use a graphite paper, which I'll show you. You can buy this at most craft stores. It's a piece of graphite paper that has graphite on one side and it's got tissue on the other. I've found this to be not 100% reliable when it comes to transferring an image. It works okay, but if you've used it before, you'll know what I mean. You got to bear down pretty hard, and when you're doing a drawing on a piece of tender paper, you don't necessarily want to bear down very hard because you'll leave an impression in the paper. It still works, and if you're using it now, that's great. But you can buy this in 8 by 10 sizes, 8.5 by 11. You can also buy it up to, I believe, 9 by 13. And I've done layouts with this as well. But when I was at the store last time trying to find this, I came across what is a powdered graphite, compressed charcoal powder. Now this compressed charcoal powder is some nasty stuff. It is like talcum powder, but it's pure black. And I got to thinking, well, you know, that's not too bad an idea. If I do the charcoal, maybe I could put it on the back of my Xerox paper. So I got me out a trusty sanding block, and I sprinkled some powdered charcoal on the back of this paper, and I spread it out with a sanding block. I did it paper towel a couple times, and it didn't seem to do as well as a sanding block. Unfortunately, you get graphite everywhere, so you've got to be real careful when you're done that you're not going to. So after I got the charcoal powder on the back of this sheet, which had my trusty banjo player on the front of it, I laid this down on top of my. Now this is a sanded Uart 800 paper in a colored pencil drawing, and I laid this down on top of, I'm not going to dare let this touch because it'll transfer to charcoal, but I laid it down on top of this, and you'll see the red marks here. What those red marks are is a ballpoint pen that is red, And I also use some hard red colored pencils. They're very thin. I think it's what the brand Kohinoor, I believe it is, makes it a very hard red pencil, so you can see where you bear down. But as you'll see in the video, the what I'm going to show you in Photoshop, the layout came out extremely well. It was almost like a little mini charcoal drawing once I got finished putting the initial pigment down. So I really like it, and I'm going to take you now to the next steps actually the steps I took before this to get this kind of a line drawing out of a regular photograph. So I'm going to switch over now to the computer, and I'm going to show you in Photoshop how to create a line drawing in Photoshop, pencil drawing in Photoshop, that'll allow you to transfer either by this method or the graphite paper method, transfer your image over to your canvas. So here you go. Let's take a look. So back to my recording on how I got to the Xerox copy that you saw. First of all, this is the photograph I took of the Stone Mountain gentleman, and what I've done here in Photoshop, I'm assuming some familiarity with Photoshop, and so this is the gentleman that I took a picture of. He was playing the banjo, a pretty afternoon with my kids and grandkids. He was there with his bluegrass band, and I wanted to do a drawing of this, so let me give you the quick steps to create a line drawing out of this. And it's a very fast process. It's very easy to learn and to do. So I'll start it off here. First of all, let me do this. Let me get rid of this copy that I made. This is the original photograph, and the reason I have that copy there is the first thing I always do with Photoshop, any kind of image that I'm working on, is I will make a copy of the original photo, and to do that I just simply drag it into the new folder, or into the new layer box right here, and create a background copy, and so this now becomes the working copy, and I can hit the eyeball here. What the eyeball is, it means that you're not going to see the layer underneath. So the little eyeballs that'll form as we move along here, the last eyeball will be the visual that you see here. So if I click this one now, this one takes precedence over this one. It's like you're looking down on this, and here's the layer you're going to see. If you hide this layer below, it's gone, and that's important to know. I'm going to do something you'll think is kind of wacky here, but this is how you create a line drawing out of any photograph. This works for literally any photograph, portrait. You can simplify it, but all you do is you drag a new copy of that layer down to the new layer. So now you've made a second background copy, and there's something called layer styles in here, and you can change from a normal style, and what you want to do is change to a color dodge. Okay, now that looks pretty unusable and pretty weird, but what you want to do is you want to invert it. One way to invert it is to go to the image, go to adjustments, drop down here to invert, and uh-oh, what happened to the image? It went away. That's okay, because what we're going to do next is we're going to go to filter, and this is why this is such a fast process. Go to filter, go to blur and Gaussian blur, and when you do, who pops up but our banjo player, and he pops up sort of a colored line drawing, and it's somewhat sketchy, but it's usable. But if I move the scale back and forth on the line drawing, you'll get a very faint radius. We'll give you just a tiny picture of what's going on underneath. And the further you slide the radius to the right, you can increase the contrast, increase the levels to the point where you get what is a more defined drawing. Now, one additional step in this process is I'm looking at this top layer, and I've got these colors which I'm not crazy about. So what I'm going to do is add another layer. Let me just say OK on this one. And then I'm going to add another layer, and it's going to be a hue saturation layer. And I'm going to drop the saturation on the layer down to 0 or -100. And when I do, it takes out all the color. So now I have what essentially is a black and white drawing, which gives me the basic deep outlines of what I want. And so I've got a pretty good rendering here of the gentleman. It's got the lines that I want to print. I'm going to go up here to the image and go to image size, and this one I wanted to be 11 by 14. And so I'm at 300 is good resolution, so I can change the image size to 11 by, it's going to make it 16, so I'll say OK, and I'm going to crop it with my crop tool, and I'm going to create a new crop preset called, I'm actually going to make this 10.5 by 13.5 because I want this to have I want this to be a piece in which there's a border. If this is 10.5 and I put an 11-inch mat, I'll have a 1/4-inch border on the top and the bottom, and then the width I'll have a 1/4-inch border on a 14-inch mat. So now here's my banjo player, and I'm going to move this mat around until I get exactly where I want it to be. Hit enter, and I now have a 10.5 by 14 or 13.5 image with all the major delineations that I can then create can file, print, and when I do, I'm going to go to my LaserJet. Actually, I'm going to go to my 7610 printer. My print settings, I'm going to use see if I got a setting here for that. I don't. The size of the piece is going to be, I'm going to use 11 by 17 paper. Media quality doesn't really matter. Paper type, auto select. I really don't care that it's that great of a copy. So I'm going to save it. And now you'll see that it's going to print on an 11 by 17 piece of paper, which is a piece that I can buy at the Office Depot. I bought a ream of this actually. And now when I print it, I'll get the print that you saw a minute ago. So that gives you a really fast and easy way to create a line drawing. And what I can do is I can do this with any print, and I'll show you how fast it is. So I'm going to close this piece out here. I'm not going to save it. This is the final drawing that I wound up with after I got done. But I'm going to open up a new photograph. I'm not sure what I'm going to do here, but okay, so here's a picture of my two granddaughters playing checkers and at Cracker Barrel. And so let's say I want to create a line drawing of this really cute picture. I'm going to crop it down to my 13.5 by 10.5, which is still in the system here. And so now I have the original photograph which I want to work from. Actually, I think what I'll do is Drop that down a little bit more. Actually, I might do this one here. This sounds kind of like it'd be good. And I'm going to keep the same ratio, 10.5 by 13.5. And let me pull it on down here. And I'm going to move this down. So they're the main subject of the piece. This will be my next drawing. Kill two birds with one stone here. So now let's see how fast we can do this. I'm going to create a copy of this. Alright, I'm going to create another copy because I don't want to work on my original. Then on this copy here, I'm going to change it over to color dodge. Then I'm going to invert it. And I'm going to go this way so you'll see the for sure way to do it, but you can also use Command I. We'll do the same thing. And then I'm going to go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and I'm going to just get enough of a line drawing so that I can pick out the edges when I'm doing my layout. When I print it on a piece of paper, I can pick up just the edges that I want to transfer over underneath. So I'm going to say OK, and then I'm going to put levels, use saturation, reduce my saturation. Do this a few dozen times and you'll get it down. And now I have a really nice drawing here, a nice layout that I can then print. And of course I can make this 8 by 10 if I wanted to. I can make this any size that I want to. But now I have a really nice layout that I can then print out on a piece of paper, put the charcoal powder on the back of the paper, put the paper over another piece of paper. Now in my case I'm using what's called sanded art paper. And the sanded art paper is a very forgiving surface in that I can use colored pencils on it and the graphite is not going to impact the final drawing. You may find if you're using watercolors and some other medium that the charcoal is too strong and you may not, the charcoal may wind up blending with your watercolor. If you're doing a graphite drawing, obviously a pencil drawing of some sort, then you're going to be in good shape because it's going to not transfer the powder to the paper, and even if it does, it's not going to hurt. Now let me show you in my case, I'm going to open up the original. When I did that drawing that I showed you originally, when I did the print with the graphite on the back or the charcoal on the back, I'll show you how that came out when I transferred it. So as you can see, the original screenshot here I have here of the charcoal drawing that was traced over off the Xerox copy, which came out on this piece of white paper or white sanded art paper, which I actually put down I sprayed a acrylic wash over it with the sepia ink and created this sepia colored background on the sanded paper, which I then used that to draw the pencil to bear down on the Xerox copy to transfer the lines over, and that became the basis so that when I did the drawing I had a good start and I could make it happen. So anyway, hopefully that helps you, and if you have any questions, please let me know. Contact me through my website georgehoffman.com and shoot me an email, subscribe to my channel, and if you have something you'd like me to help you with or show you, I'll be glad to do that. Thanks a lot for listening, and bye-bye.